Is there a meaning to the words that I am singing? Or just another wasted rhyme?
Here we go. The fourth Detroit All-Star Garage Rock Punk Revue.
Events like this really bring people together, get people focused on the scene, get people focused on Detroit music.
I think Detroit just has its own sound. It's kind of the birthplace of punk with MC5 and the Stooges, and like everything kind of sprung out from here.
It's a musical family, but it's made up of like so many influences, man. Yeah. We don't have one sound. So when you say what's our influence, Detroit.
The Detroit All-Star Garage Rock Punk Revue, a celebration of the underground side of Detroit music. After 2 years off due to COVID, the event came back bigger than ever in August as a 2-night festival at the Cadieux Cafe.
People have been just so grateful, and they're listening in a different way, a new way, like music kind of being stripped away from everybody, as well as like all this other stuff we were losing was like a wake-up call, I think.
Not playing just is tough for me. It's what I live for. It feels great. It feels great, seriously.
The event was organized by musician Smitt E, Smitty of Detroit's Figures on a Beach, and was hosted by radio icon and former WDET Radios in Motion host Michael Halloran.
This is the fourth one, and after coming out of 2-3 years of COVID, I think everyone shot out of a cannon. Being able to still do this and get together with our friends and up-and-comers, it really is a very beautiful thing.
What I really like about this event in particular is it's essentially a building block. Foundational thing, so younger bands can work with those older bands that have been established in the scene. Kids basically in the School of Rock can, they can work with bands like Cinecyde that have been going for about 40 years.
The fourth Detroit All-Star Garage Rock Punk Revue featured a cross-section of bands from the full 4.5-decade history of Detroit punk, from some of the city's earliest punk bands to some of its newest. And even some musicians of the future from the School of Rock in Farmington.
The first one really was a celebration. I didn't really have anything in mind other than getting a bunch of old school friends of mine from back in the punk days, late 70s, 80s. And the moment we decided we were going to do a second one, it was kind of like, okay, well, we did the one where we had mostly the old guard. Now I really want to go after some of the new and young bands that are happening in the Detroit music scene.
People who are elders of punk and rock and roll always have a leg to help lift up the next generation. People in Detroit are so ready to give a leg up.
Yeah, it was great to play with a lot of these legendary bands that have been around since the 80s, and there's a lot of young artists who are trying to come up with something new. So this is a good showcase of a lot of different bands addressing punk in a different way.
There is no music scene that even comes close to what the Detroit music scene is. It's like, and I've been around the world and visited every city. Detroit, without any question, is the #1 music scene on the planet. Everybody else is fighting for second place.
Detroit was always on the map because of its music scene, but the Detroit bands that were existing at the time were completely radically different, I think, than what was happening in Cleveland with the Dead Boys and Chicago.
Detroit has kind of a brand on it. It can be raw, hard, compelling rock and roll, over the top sometimes. And that punk rock scene then was surely all of that, but it was even more.
It came down from outer space. What's gonna kill the human race?
I was listening to an interview that Berry Gordy gave when he was talking about why Motown songs sounded the way they did. And it's because when he was working in the factories, there was something about the stamping, you know, the big machines that were doing all this work that had a rhythm that got stuck in his head, which basically became that whole boxer beat, 4 on the floor, you know, pat, 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 pat.
Like, we can't get away from Motown, you know,
Yeah.
and we obviously cannot
Why
get
would you
away.
want to?
And I mean, obviously cannot get away from I Want to Be Your Dog.
There's kind of a very like industrial, rough, raw pulse in the city that I think a lot of people tap into.
Industry, blue collar, hardworking. It's that kind of energy and I don't know, just sort of the rock and roll ethic. The MC5 and the Stooges, anywhere but Michigan, and they're not happening.
Richie, our drummer in the Plugs, worked at Gear and Axle. So as the drummer and hearing, you know, kong, 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 you have this rhythmic thing. So when you form a band, you're going to have a thing that is in your life that basically drives your soul. And with Richie, it was that factory type thing.
Well, every day in the mirror I see her face. Can't be knowing I can take her place. Trying to win it, but I know I'll lose the race.
And that's in essence why Radios in Motion was born. A lot of these bands from back in the day, I tried to play on the radio as much as possible. They were the people that were making Detroit cool and different. It was a point of pride with me that Detroit had not stopped when Motown moved. And I realized that thread that started in the early scene, you know, Mutants, Cold Cock, RUR, Cinecyde, were kind of like the beginning of a thread to me that we were able to attach ourselves on and then slowly move down. And then other bands came along, Vertical Pillows, but that thread just keeps going. Sometimes it gets super thin, sometimes it gets fattened up.
There's always, you know, somebody stepping up and going, hey, I've got something to say too. And I think Smitty, and I know myself, we're the mind that it's like, yeah, let's hear what you have to say. Yes, yes, yes. More, more, more.
The lineup for the Detroit All-Star Garage Rock Punk Revue followed this thread across the last 4 decades, sometimes branching off in unexpected directions.
It is eclectic. I mean, you've got the amino acids, which is kind of like this kind of compelling punk surf band. You've got the 3D Invisibles, which, you know, man, I think the 3D Invisibles should have been like, you know, stars international.
They won't stay dead. They won't stay dead. They won't stay dead.
Smitty's in a couple of the bands. He's got Little Boy Lost and
Smitty and the Feztones, that leans more into my, like the art school guy starting a band. And I probably have more in common with like Sparks and the B-52s and Devo, because there's definitely an art element.
Yeah, I'm a big bad boy, living life by definition. Big bad boy, everyone's consternation.
then flipping over, you've got folky influence like Audra Kubat.
Just in the world, you won't give it to us. I will fight with my bones and my fists if I must. Let's tear down the fences, take down the flags.
I kind of think that folk and punk music are actually kind of aligned. You know, maybe there's sort of like a different avenue for the music, but like the message is really similar. I think it's sort of like being sort of fed up and ready for change and like angry about stuff and sad and broken and mad. And so I think that folk music is actually kind of like punk rock.
Just in the world, you have given to us. I will fight with my bones and my fists if I must.
It's good good to sort of like bring in these different kind of styles under the same sort of energy of like what like punk rock or garage rock is. I'm seeing like a lot of young punk bands like kind of like springing up, but like mixing it with a little bit of acoustic. I think punk music is one of those musics, or even, you know, garage rock, that sort of lets everybody in.
My writing style is very cathartic. It's just me trying to get my thoughts across, and through punk I'm able to access a more kind of primal energy to it. The energy is very much punk, but I don't know, I try not to write in a box to try and write a song that is punk. I just try to write a song and then see where it takes me. Like, there's definitely a lot of more experimental pop influences, a lot of influences, a lot of queer artists, myself being one. Yeah, just trying to take the music I like and make my version of it, and try not to stick to like one kind of formula. Is really kind of what punk is. Do your own thing.
I did really enjoy the younger, newer bands. Sugar Tradition. They opened for Jack White's band at Masonic.
And, you know, talk about right place, right time. That was the night that Jack proposed to his...
that was that night?
That was that night. So they just, you know, I'll tell you, that's just their...
That's a historic weekend or a night or whatever it was. But
And-
yeah, those guys were freaking amazing.
The Detroit All-Star Garage Rock Punk Revue was also the debut concert performance by a brand new band, formed by legendary Detroit guitarist Mary Cobra and two members of the art rock band Shadow Show.
Of course, everyone knows Mary Cobra from the Detroit Cobras. And with the passing of Rachel Nagy, it was kind of like, oh, geez, you know, Mary, people love you. They want to see you perform. You know, what are you doing? And then she told me about her band, GiGi.
Is like we're all coming from different bands originally, so this is like our, for lack of a better word, super group. I know you hate that one.
We are Detroit women dedicated to the power of an anthem.
Well, that's what I love about GiGi too, though, is like we have basically 3 generations of Detroit punk, garage, rock, whatever. Yeah. Because it's like
they say
you kind of started it. Yeah, you're in the legend. You're in the legend era. I'm in the millennial era. You guys are like borderline Gen Z.
Yeah. We all have our individual influences, but we all come together because of how much we love music, how much we love the power of a song, and what makes a song, a good song at least, a great song. You know, that's all that matters. You know.
Yeah. Take Back the Night was our first single that we released, and that was inspired by a demo that Mary got a hold of that was something that Rob Tyner had been working on before he passed, that Mary unearthed, and we kind of breathed new life into it. I'm just so excited for when we finish our album and get that out, because it really feels like that first song is more like an homage, and this next song, High Heels, it feels like us. It really feels like all of us.
It's another anthem.
Oh, it's an anthem.
I feel like punk in its essence is just an energy. It's just more of that kind of primal way of connecting to music, I guess.
This is like Detroit's finest. Whether they've been around forever or just, popped up within the last year or two. I mean, this is like, oh, this came from Detroit? This isn't from LA? This isn't from London? This isn't from New York? It's like, no, this is all Detroit.
Thank you.